Welcome to Finance Fridays. I'm Jon Katz, the Vice President of Marketing here at Build. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the financial challenges that contractors face in construction. And, we're going to go through kind of four really common issues that cause cash flow challenges. One, the length of the repayment cycle. Two, inadequate supplier terms. Three, lack of support from traditional lenders. And four, really high upfront project costs. Number one, let's talk about the length of the repayment cycle. This is actually one of the longest in any industry, and that's for subcontractors. That's ultimately because you need to lay out capital, cash for materials and labor, really most of the time prior to getting paid for your work. So ultimately, you are financing the project. You're the one that's laying out the capital that gets the project started. So why is this an issue? Well, it means that you have to put cash out for materials, labor that digs into your existing cash flow. And if you're not using financing, you're ultimately taking your cash out of your business, and you may be waiting 60 or 90 days to get paid on that work. If you're in government jobs, that could take even longer. So that is why, the length of the repayment cycle makes it extremely challenging to manage your cash flow. Number two, let's talk about inadequate supplier terms. So if we look back to number one, where you're laying out cash for materials prior to getting paid, suppliers usually give you 30-day terms. On average, supplier terms are about 30 days. They do extend up to 45, and there's about 4% of contractors that have 60-day terms with their suppliers. But ultimately, that's still not long enough to ensure that you're paid so you can pay back your supplier with your income from the materials that you've already worked to build. So inadequate supplier terms, even though they're nice to have, they usually do not, the length of them are not long enough to actually ensure that you're already paid for your work. Three, lack of support from traditional lenders and banks. So banks look at a lot of different types of financial metrics of businesses. They want to see businesses that have pretty consistent cash flow. And as we talked about with some of these prior issues, cash flow for contractors is very much up and down. And so the financial industry has typically been very hesitant to lend to construction businesses at the degree that you need. You certainly may have a line of credit, you may have a bank loan, but are those lines large enough, and are they at the rates that you really should be getting? And so typically, to offset risk, banks will end up having a higher interest rate. And so that kind of digs into your profitability. And so due to this, this becomes a very big challenge for contractors to find the capital they need to really grow their business. And then four is just really high upfront project costs. This, again, plays into the first two here, but ultimately, you've got materials that are anywhere from 30 to 50% of your project's contract. You've got labor, which could be, again, 20 to 40% of your project contract. And many times you need to pay for these before you're paid for your work. So if you have $1 million project contract and you have to outlay $350,000 for materials and $350,000 for labor, you're coming out of pocket $700,000 prior to getting that million back. And so that puts a huge strain on your cash flow. And so because of this, contractors do deal with cash flow challenges, and it makes it really, really challenging to go take on a new project to grow your business. If you now get another $1 million contract that requires another $700,000 upfront, how are you going to take on that job successfully and do the work necessary to complete it on time and on budget? So how do you overcome some of these challenges that contractors face as it relates to cash flow? Well, ultimately, you need to find enough credit options in your business so you don't have to come out of pocket with cash to finance the materials and labor before you're paid for your work. So that could be a line of credit. Make sure you've heard some of our or listened to some of our other podcasts here. We talk about ways to build relationships with lenders to ultimately go get lines of credit that you need to scale your business. You also have options like material financing, which will pay your supplier up front and extend you 120-day terms, really to align your revenues and your expenses so you're paid before you pay for materials. And so options like that, good lines of credit, good material financing options. A company like Build provides material financing, and then even looking at labor financing. You can use a line of credit for labor, or there's options like pay app advances out there where you'll get paid for your pay app. That when you might be waiting for that cash to come in, and that could be a precursor to something that Build may be able to help with in the future here. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. We consider ourselves here financial consultants for the construction industry. Even if you want to talk about your line of credit, how to scale it up, how to maximize it, or if you want to talk about material financing, we are here to help. Thanks again for joining Finance Friday. Again, I'm Jon Katz with Build.